Welcome to the Boom Juice Video Connection with hosts Jeff Jarvinen and Sammy Maida. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The clock on the wall says at 12 noon.
Welcome everyone to Boom Juice. This is our brand new episode, and we have one very special guest for you, Sammy, Mr. Paul Metsa from the
Range. Yes.
Yes.
Not D-Range, Da Range.
Well,
yeah.
You could say D-Range.
Not Lug Range.
No, not the Range.
Yeah.
At any rate, we're very glad to have him here, and we're going to join Paul in conversation here in just a minute. We've got a few little heads up that we want to put out there. Speaking of Paul Metsa and a good friend of his, Mr. Rick Shefchick, they authored a book called Blood in the Tracks just a little bit ago. I have not read it. I have to say I have not read it. I've read Rick's other one that he debuted half a dozen years ago in Superior, Wisconsin. We were at a signing party. At any rate,
was that the vinyl key,
it's Rick's birthday today, so we want to say, hey, happy birthday, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon, and we'll probably talk about you in a little bit, and I don't know if we'll say anything nice, but we will talk about you. The other thing, Sammy,
yes.
you and me,
yeah.
Boom Juice.
Together, yeah.
Yeah, we have international fans.
Yeah, it's true now. We have crossed the pond in terms of fans.
And there's see the beauty of the internet, otherwise this wouldn't have happened. But my first cousins, Ollie and Auntie Jarvinen, Ollie Sr., his son is Auntie. Ollie's a retired teacher and keyboardist. I saw a picture of him with a great big C3.
You know what they call that? They call it pianist.
Pianist. He's a keyboardist,
yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Anyway, his son flies around Europe in these jets and hangs around with pretty girls and stays in nice hotels. And hey, shout out to you cats. We'll keep in touch.
You got to fly over here with some of that and share the wealth, international fame and wealth.
I thought I heard pilots make a lot of money. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know at any rate, shout out to you guys. Our good friend and former guest here just a little bit ago on Boom Juice, Mark Hawley, Virgil Kane, playing June 1st up at the Powerhouse, and this is in Proctor, Minnesota, just a spit above Duluth, Minnesota. Now, I had mentioned, people talk about the blues. No, they're a rock blues band, and people talk about, well, I like the blues, but 4 or 5 hours of the blues, and I'm like, well, you know what? I can take 4 sets of Virgil Kane and love every minute of it.
Yeah, so, Mark is a pretty rockin' cat here, and he's kind of like a showman of a Mick Jagger type guy. And so Virgil Kane has a pretty powerful, energetic set, and their bass player, actually, Dave Prudhomme, is my bass player. In Croon
That's
Juice.
right. That's right. Yes.
So there's that mutual connection there. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, it's the network. The networking.
So with all the cats that have been through Virgil Kane and the host of characters, they've maintained a pretty good repertoire and presence in the Twin. I would say almost 20 years. And anytime you go see their show, spot on.
It's always fun to be with and talk to. Mark and see him play. He's a consummate performer.
He's a legend.
And when you see Mark, you know he's a rocker from the word go. Another little heads up that we're going to put up some posters, not in this edition of Boom Juice, but the next one coming up. There's going to be a special fundraiser at the Duluth Armory. It's the Arts and Entertainment Center or something like that. Now this is coming up Saturday, July 13th. Right at the Armory, and the Armory stage where all the greats played. The Buddy Holly played. The Supremes played.
Dylan's in the
Roy
crowd.
Orbison played.
Orbison.
The fabulous story, and sure Paul can relate to this, of Bob Dylan watching Buddy Holly right in the front row, and having that be life changing.
Days
for
before
Bob.
he died.
Yeah.
Days before he died.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So at any rate. Saturday, July 13th, I believe it's a 3-hour show. I think it's like 6 to 9 or 5 to 8 or something like that. Special guest, get this. You've all heard of the Trashmen.
Oh, yeah.
The 60s.
The bird is the word, baby.
Bird is the word. The 60s headlining rockers, Tony Andreessen, original guitarist from the Trashmen,
Yeah.
is going to be on hand, along with some other well-known cats in Minnesota. In addition, our good friend Bill Belinsky is playing guitar. Bill is from the Electras from Ely back in the day, and Bill's probably the best guitar player I know.
Yeah, Bill is like Clapton, Eddie Van Halen, Dick Dale, all rolled into one and lit with a firecracker. And he's still blowing it away. I mean, my guitar player, George Zizos, is one of the best guitar players around, and he looks to him and
Bill,
with reverence. And so that's how good Bill still is, and is, period.
Yeah, absolutely. You got some notes? You got some things coming up here?
I got notes.
You got notes?
Yeah.
Did you study the notes?
Well, of course I did. I did right now.
I know I gave them to you like a minute ago, but I mean,
So I'm going to bring you guys up on a couple of things here, so bear with me. A good friend that we helped kind of coach and bring up, he's a fabulous star. He's working his way down in Nashville and back up through here in Duluth. He kind of floats between the two. Mr. Zach Grandel.
Any undrivables.
Undrivables is his new
I love
backup
that
band.
name. I just love that name.
It's great. So they have a new album that is out now called On the Bottle.
Now, is that an album or is that a single on the album?
It just says new record, so it might be. It could be both. I don't know.
Well, nowadays you release an album, but at any rate.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
But it's available now. I'm sure you can find it on the internet or on YouTube, or you probably go on to, he's got his address here. So we got to go to ZachGrandelmusic.com, and we'll put that on there for you.
And his schedule is on there, and he's got a date coming up. When is it?
Yeah, so he's got a gig up in Buell at the Hideaway. And ironically, I've never been there.
I haven't been there.
But that show is Friday, May 24th. So if you want to catch Zach.
And he's not in town much.
He's actually gigging quite a bit down in Nashville.
He goes down to Texas. He goes down south. He does quite a bit, actually.
Yeah,
nice to see.
Very up and coming cat. Check him out.
Yeah, nice to see.
Yeah, and then so of course, why not? I gotta do it. I gotta do it.
Oh, of course you do.
I got to do it, yeah. So I got to plug my own band, and not to toot our own horns, but tooting our own horn. My band, Croon Juice, is really taken off, quite unexpectedly. We knew it would be good. We didn't think it would take off the way it is. And so we have a gig coming up Saturday, May 18th at, the same place we're at, the Superior Tavern.
Superior Tavern.
Yeah, Superior Tavern. So catch us. We play the most diverse set list that you've ever seen. I mean, we'll be doing Elvis, and then we'll be doing, Tanya Tucker or something. And
Tammy Wynette.
Tammy Wynette. And
Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf.
I mean, are you kidding me?
It's just, and then we go to Kiss.
Yeah.
Kiss. Okay. Roy Orbison to Kiss. That's our set list. So it just bounces all over the place. And trust me, if you are a fan of music and you like to boogie and you like to dance, go check them out.
They're really a band to take in. You just got to go see them strictly for the set list.
Yeah, we're talking about, we all play in different bands. We all got, so Perfetti plays in another band, I play in another band, and Dave, of course, we just mentioned, plays with Virgil Caine. So we're all, and Johnny Seguin, of course, is solo. And so all these cats are top notch. So if you want to see good music, go check them out.
One last heads up before we move to the couch.
The couch.
And visit with our friend Paul Metsa. Speaking of Paul Metsa, now I just did a little filming of Paul yesterday at his gig at the Blackwater Lounge in the Graceland Plaza. Now, when you say that, you really think I should be wearing tie and tails? Blackwater Lounge in the Graceland
the old
Plaza?
Hotel Duluth,
Oh, yes. At any rate, it's a lovely little place. Paul's a great performer. You got to watch this. Well, they are also the longtime home of the Maxie Childs Trio, which is actually a quartet.
It's a revolving quartet.
Yeah, revolving quartet.
Yeah.
They are great. They've been there a long time. They're good friends of ours, and you will also like them. So anyways, any more heads up? What do we got to talk about?
You know what we're missing? We've got one more that we should bring up, and that is our our good friend and former host of this show, Armin Blackwater, also of Steppenwolf, is coming back to the fold here in town.
For a week's stay, a week's
Duluth,
vacation,
Duluth, yeah.
actually, from Florida.
Yeah, so he's coming on up, and that's going to be fabulous. I'm sure some details will be classified, but what is not classified, we're going to tell you. And he'll be up here Sunday, June 23rd at 1 p.m.
Starting at 1.
at the historic Come On in
West
beautiful
Duluth,
downtown West Duluth.
57th and Grand.
That's right.
In Duluth.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to miss that because we've done a bunch of jams with different people, and we've done a few with Armin, and they just turned out to be an absolute fun afternoon. The place is full of musicians and friends, and half the musicians there get up on stage during the course of the afternoon. And in fact, I just invited our good friend Paul Metsa to bop in.
Perfect.
And Paul would just get a kick out of Armin. He's a hoot.
He's a great guy.
Armin's a
just
hoot.
great cat. Another fellow vet, Air Force Vietnam veteran.
He is.
Yeah.
He actually is.
Yeah, he
yes.
is.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Man.
One of the other things is with Armin always has like an all-star backing band, which means there's probably 30 of us that just rotate in and out. And with the Come On In and Armin in town, you are not going to know who's going to show up. It could be some of the cats from Centerville. It could be Virgil Kane. It could be Paul's probably going to get up on stage and check this stuff out. Not only that, nothing's rehearsed. So what you see is what you get. It's just, hey, we're playing this. Somebody know it. We're going to do it in D.
No, it's a jam. The reason you can say it's a jam is because
it is a jam.
Here's cats who have been playing 30 and 40 and 50 years. I don't need to rehearse.
Last time Armin did it, he started going into something, and he looks back at me, and I'm going, I have no idea what the hell he's playing. He's just going off on something. I'm going, all right, I'll just play the hook, and then finally, I think George or somebody started playing. So, okay, I know what they're playing now. But yeah, so that's the fun thing. It's spontaneous. It's great. If you love music, you definitely got to go see that show.
Sammy,
free of charge.
Sammy, we're going to get off these chairs and move to the couch and talk with our good friend Paul Metsa in just 1 minute. Welcome back to Boom Juice. Thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope we didn't, Sammy and I didn't bore the tears out of you just a moment ago.
Were we supposed to? That's not our goal.
That's not our goal.
We don't want to do
At any rate, we are here this afternoon with a true Northland legend, and let me introduce to you our new good friend and colleague, Mr. Paul Metsa. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here and taking the time,
Well, you need another Finlander on the show.
That's true. That's great. That is really great. Actually, Paul relates that because the Metsa name, now I don't know if you would know that's Finnish, but Paul, you come from, a deeply rooted Finnish community.
Oh, no. I know quite a bit of my heritage. Metsa means woods or forest. But the original name when they came from Finland, when they got to Ellis Island, was Metsävainio. So I always knew Metsa meant wood or forest. But years ago, I was at a party on the north side of Virginia, and there was a gentleman visiting from Finland. And so I introduced myself, and I said, yeah, I'm a Finnish American. And I said, he goes, your name means woods or forest. I said, I know that. I said, but the original name was Metsävainio. I said, that's what I want to find out what that meant. And without skipping a beat, he goes, oh, that means lost in the woods.
Really?
Whoa.
And it was so quick.
That's lost in the woods.
And it was so quick, I actually never wanted to figure out if he was BSing me or not, because it was that quick, dry Finnish sense of humor.
Sure.
But really, I found out it means actually, Metsävainio means meadow in a forest. So, but yeah, I grew up around all Finns. We had a sauna at Lake Vermilion, which we still do. And then at one point when I was in 7th grade, we moved to the north side of Virginia. We had a sauna right in the house. So all the relatives every Sunday night would come over, sauna, and bring biscuit, and occasionally some moyaka.
Samoyaka, yes.
Yeah, I'm in touch. I'm in touch with my Finnish roots.
Yeah, that's really in our geographic area. Finns were people that came to America way back at the turn of the century and kind of inundated this area. And my name is pronounced Jarvinen, but in Finland it's Jarvinen, which means by the lake. But at any rate, as I said, my cousins will get a kick out of that. Anyways, Paul, you know, I'm going to go back to this Cats thing. Cats Under the Stars. You started that now. You are really, that name is as much synonymous as your name is.
Well, it was a great band. It's actually, we're here on Boom Juice, and so we all are of a certain age, but it will actually be our 50th anniversary.
Oh, jeez.
Next summer, 1975.
Yes.
We are, initially it started out, I was playing with a really good harmonica player I met the first day of senior high, and I'd seen him around town playing at Keggers. And people told me, see that guy walking down the street with his dog? He had a little dog named Rip. His name was Tim O'Keefe. He was originally from Superior, but he spent some time in Duluth. And so I met him the very first day of senior high, 1973. And I said, why don't you, I said, I know you play harmonica. I've seen you play, and I'll bring my guitar tomorrow. And so I did, and we played for 2 or 3 hours on the school steps, then went to his house, and he and I started playing. We did a lot of old folk and blues and jug band music. We called ourselves the Bernie Scribble New Freedom Jug Band.
Oh my
and
God.
we had banjos and
Where did you come
mandolins
up
and
with that
dulcimers.
name?
Well, I had my nom de plume. I wrote for the high school newspaper. Bernie Scribble was kind of the, well, when I say stoner version of me, that's redundant because we were all stoned in 1973. But so Bernie Scribble, that was my nom de plume to write in the high school newspaper. And then Timmy really turned me on to the blues. Now there was very little blues back in the 60s and 70s. There was a few guys that played it.
Correct.
But you heard most of your blues on Johnny Carson. You see B.B. King or
King.
Jimi Hendrix. I heard the names, of course, Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. But O'Keefe turned me on to this duo, Brownie McGee and Sonny Terry, which was, of course, they played the Piedmont style of blues. Brownie McGee played guitar. Sonny Terry was sang and played great harmonica. So we kind of patterned ourselves after that. And so a few months later, we morphed into Metsa and O'Keefe, and we used to book ourselves as the only Finnish-Irish acoustic blues duo in the upper Midwest.
That's great.
We met another fella named John Pasternacki, and we started playing around as we were playing a lot of, our generation used to listen to like Ry Cooder, John Hammond, Bonnie Raitt, David Bromberg,
Sure.
Taj Mahal. That's where we got into it. All those folks listened, they had the good fortune of being able to listen to and play with the Muddy Waters and the Howlin' Wolves and Memphis Minnie and Jimmy Reed and John Lee Hooker and the rest. So we kind of came into the blues thing and the roots thing through those guys. So we started playing together, and the name of that band, we picked up a banjo player who's not with us anymore, named Skip Nellemark, may rest in peace. And we used to call that band Hot Walleye, which was our northern Minnesota take on Hot Tuna.
Hot tuna, yeah, great.
I remember that.
Yeah, and we played all, we played, you name it. We played Cook, Ely, Chisholm. We played garages. We played barn dances. We played whatever they'd have us. We'd play.
Just like all bands did.
Right.
Anything they could latch on to, they performed, yes.
And then I was reading. Do you guys remember Crawdaddy magazine?
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
it was a really good rock and roll magazine with some great writing. And there was an article in there called Cats Under the Stars. It was written by Robert Hunter, who was the lyricist for the Grateful Dead. But it had nothing to do with the Grateful Dead. It was a stoner comedy article. But I saw the title, and I thought, man, Cats Under the Stars, what a beautiful name for a band. So I literally cut it out of the magazine and I put it in my wallet, and I had it for a couple of years. We were playing around as Hot Walleye, and then August 17th, 1975, there was a gig up in Alcott Park, Northside Park in Virginia.
Been there.
And we decided, there's a fellow named Doug Ellis, who you should have on the show. He's a really good songwriter, kind of a legendary Iron Range cat. And he also runs Virginia Surplus, which he's trying to sell if anybody's looking to buy a really cool surplus store. And he booked this, one of those Sunday afternoon shows. And I said, hey man, it's time to change the name. So that was the first time we called ourselves Cats Under the Stars. Now, interestingly enough, Jerry Garcia, of course, the lead guitarist, leader of the Grateful Dead, came out with a record called Cats Under the Stars in 1978. So by the time we moved down to Minneapolis, I moved down in 78. I talked to O'Keefe to move down, so we're playing as Metsa and O'Keefe in 1980. And then I talked the band. We were all kind of living in different towns, but we'd get together about every 6 weeks to play at Norman's Bar in Virginia. You might have played there over the years.
Yep.
And which was actually used to be the Roosevelt Bar that my grandfather owned. And my dad grew up upstairs at that bar. So I was very familiar with the bar. But we'd get together every 6 weeks and play that back when those gigs were 6 nights a week. Right? Which those gigs don't exist anymore.
Yeah, those days are gone. Yeah.
But the money was good enough, with the rent was cheap enough, we could all meet and get enough money to go back to wherever we were living and, live for another 6 weeks to 2 months.
Now, were you performing a combination of folk and contemporary rock and roll, or what was the format?
Well, really before that, I really started out, I had two really good guitar teachers when I was like 11 or 12. I used to take lessons from a guy named Larry Groves at Beddoes Music, which was right on the main street of Virginia. And they were the Gibson, they had all the Gibson guitars. Man, I talk about my friends that were my age and a little older, when you used to, if you could walk in that store in 1968 and buy every Gibson guitar that was hanging on the wall, you could retire right now. Because they had ES335s and Les Pauls and SGs, But I started taking there when I was in second grade, and I just could never learn how to read notes, I wanted to just start playing songs. So not long after, I got the little Pete Seeger little book, The Guide for Young Folk Singers or something. And I started, figured out a few chords. Then when I was in 5th grade, I met a fellow by the name of Dennis Monroe, who played in a band you'd remember, the Small Society.
Oh, for sure.
And with the Driscoll brothers, Bob and Dennis Driscoll, Al Lukoski on drums. Very popular band. In fact, they won the 1968 Duluth WEBC-sponsored Battle of the Bands, and that's back when WEBC would sponsor a single for them. So they put out a record with this original song called Live for a Real Good Sound.
I don't want to interrupt, Paul.
No,
here,
please
but
do.
I got to tell you, when Tracy London and I put together these compilation CDs starting back in 2004, we did two 60s bands compilations. We did a 70s, and then we did a country one. Small Society was one of the first group that we took their records, transferred to digital, found some pictures, and they're on, I believe, our first CD. I think it's Sensational 60s or 60s Smash Hits. At any rate,
They were a great band.
We did a lot of talking about them, and people I've met over the years, including Bill Belinsky from The Range, was saying, yeah, those guys were our competition, but they were good.
Yeah, and they had matching Fender amps You know, Bob had a dual showman, and Dennis had a bassman. Their mother, Agnes Micketts, he was their manager, and used to drive them around. She got a station wagon and managed them and booked them. But Dennis was also a really good folk singer. And he, for some reason, he got turned on to everything that was coming out of Greenwich Village, like Bob Dylan and Richie Havens and the New Lost City Ramblers. And so he turned me on all of this stuff that I would have never heard about if it wasn't through Dennis. So he taught me how to play fingerstyle guitar. And in fact, I still have his famous 12-string that I bought from him. And he had another guitar student named Chuck Christensen. So we're in 5th grade, we meet each other, and we decide we're gonna start playing together. And we started a folk duo called Paul and Christian, and we thought we were the Iron Range's answer to Simon and Garfunkel.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so we were, you know, we played I remember we played a lot of talent shows. We played a talent show in Mountain Iron. Now, this was the height of the folk scare, 1968, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
everybody's playing guitar. I mean, there were a couple accordions and a couple of, acts, But Chuck and I were, we were also heavily influenced by the Man from U.N.C.L.E. and T.H.E. Cat and James Bond and Man from Flint. We were 6th grade. It was like this make-believe world that...
I Spy, yeah.
Yeah, I Spy, exactly.
Yeah.
So this particular talent show at the Mountain Iron High School, we thought they asked all the performers to go out into the auditorium to figure out how it was going to run, the order of the acts. Well, Chuck and I thought, why don't we stick around backstage and detune all the guitars?
No.
Sabotaged, yeah.
No.
Sabotage,
Exactly
yeah.
what Chuck took that side of the room.
That's great.
I took the 12 strings. He took the 6 strings. And now we came in 2nd place. We didn't win the gold. We came in 2nd behind the Mountain Iron PTA Mothers Tupperware Jug Band. So it wasn't a straight rise to the top.
Whoa.
And it might have been kind of karma holding us back.
Kind of like paying dues here, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
But it's been long enough. I don't think I could be arrested for that. But Chuck and I played together then in a junior high, and then we started a rock band when we were in 6th or 7th grade called The Positive Reaction, and we had you guys will dig this. We had 2 12-string guitars. Chuck played a Vox 12-string. I played a famous 12-string with a DeArmond pickup. No bass, and our drummer was Gary Paglosetti, who went on to become very well known as the youngest judge in St. Louis County. They named him a judge when he was about 29 years old. In fact, I just bumped into Gary at Costco about a year ago up here in Duluth. I hadn't seen him in years. But we were playing around. Yeah, I mean, no bass. We predated the White Stripes by 45 years. And so we played into junior high, and then high school. We picked up a couple new guys, Brian Mackey on drums, Brian Vitale on bass. Brian's not with us anymore. May he rest in peace. And we changed our name to Damn Everything But the Circus. So we were playing high school dances, and we did play the 1974 WEBC Battle of the Bands at the Duluth Armory, and we won.
No kidding.
Outstanding.
So it was cool because the small society won in 68, we won in 74, and that was one of the first times I'd actually played in Duluth. But I came down with my family to Duluth. We'd always go to the Home and Boat Show. And one year, George Goebel was the headliner. And Lonesome George Goebel, who was a good guitar player.
He was.
He was he played Gibson guitars. In fact, I was up in Moorhead several years ago, I'd like to go to vintage stores, used bookstores, and I opened a book and it had a signed photo from George Gobel that is proudly taped to my refrigerator. And then there was a great accordion player named Dick Contino. Do you remember him?
I do not remember that name.
He actually was.
Where was he from?
He was from, I think, New Jersey. He was on Ed Sullivan several times.
Okay, all
A
right.
phenomenal accordion player, and he looked like Elvis Presley. And he'd walk around the, the Armory and at the Home and Boat Show. Now, funny, Dick Contino. I was reading an interview with Roy Batan, Springsteen's piano player, and they said, "Well, who are some of your influences?" He said, "Well, there used to be this accordion player named Dick Contino," and I go, "So Dick's influencing me to a certain degree, and has a little influence in Bruce Springsteen's band. So you never know who you're going to run into at the Duluth Armory."
Boy, I guess, really. What, now I know you spent a lot of years performing like down in the cities, the caboose, and
Yeah.
whatever. Now, was that mainstream rock and roll? What was that?
No, we were starting to play originals. First of all, Cats and the Stars, we were almost, when we started, we were kind of a country rock band that played some blues and played some original stuff. And then when Pasternak, Keefe moved to Minneapolis, we were heavily influenced by a three-piece vocal and guitar group called Rio Nito. And they did all 30s and 40s three-part harmony. And they were really good. And my mother loved that music. She loved the Mills Brothers and Duke Ellington. So so we put on tuxedos and we learned all these 30s and 40s swing jazz tunes, really complex harmonies. We rehearsed a lot, and we knew our stuff. There's one great, there's two things people can go. The WDSE TV did our documentary on Paul Metsa and Cats and the Stars
I
for our
saw that.
40th.
I saw that.
And there's a clip of us in tuxedos playing that. But then we also started to play as a rock band. And we were one of the first bands to start playing Neville Brothers and New Orleans music and Bob Marley. And we played long jams. Now, because we had the name Cats and the Stars, everybody thought we were a Grateful Dead band. No, we weren't. Yeah. Now, we did smoke weed and play really long jams. So we had that in common, but we played some cover songs the Dead did, like "Big River" by Johnny Cash, "Not Fade Away" by Buddy Holly, but we really had our own take on things. But what was cool about that was the Deadheads that were out there thought we were a Grateful Dead tribute band, so we already had kind of a built-in audience. And then when they heard us play, it was similar enough. We were a jam band. We were kind of heavily influenced by a lot of the San Francisco bands like Quicksilver Messenger Service and Moby Grape.
Yes.
And we were a really good dance band. So, but I'll flip back a little bit. When I started to play in the nightclubs up on the range, my English teacher is a guy named Tommy Moeller, who has been playing for the last many years with the Renowns.
I heard, I heard that, yes.
And so Tommy also gave me some guitar lessons, and he was playing with Tony Perpich and the Perpetones. Now, Tony Perpich had Perpich TV and Music, downtown Virginia, which we all hung out at, all the fledgling musicians. That where we spent our lunch hours, there in Cane Lake's Candies and Pepin Jack's Bakery, because you get free pastries at the bakery. And they played all over the range, and they needed a bass player. So when I was in ninth grade, I started to play bass with Tony, and Tony was first cousins with Governor Rudy Perpich. They were each best man at each other's weddings. But it was fun for me because that was the first time where I started playing in nightclubs to see where my mom and dad, when they dressed up on weekends, and used to go dance. Sure. Back when dancing was a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing.
I mean, it is to a certain degree, but
you dressed up to go out for the party.
Yeah, exactly, exactly right. So anyway, I started playing in clubs, and so it was when I moved to Minneapolis. Boy, I was right on it. The guy that gave me my very first gig, 1978, I saw in the back of the University of Minnesota in the Minnesota Daily. It said, want guitar player Skyway Lounge, which was a strip club on Hennepin. So I had a little cassette and a little one-page promo pack, and I went down there and I knocked on the door. I was there at, geez, club opened at 10. Strippers started at about, I think, 3 in the afternoon. So the owner came and let me in, and I was raring to go. I was, 21 years old, and I was ready to rock. And so I'm sitting there talking to this fella. Turns out to be, his name is Reggie Callahan. Now Reggie's sitting there reading the paper. He has the Banaka, the breath spray.
Yeah.
He's chewing on a cigar. He's got a bright green golf sweater on. And above him, there's a picture of somebody that looks like him with the Beatles. So we're talking, and he was just excited that somebody would answer the ad. So, I started playing there that week. Well, it turns out Reggie Callahan was the guy that booked the Rolling Stones in their first gig in Minnesota at Reggie's Danceland, 63. He booked the Beatles at Med Stadium in 65. And I hope, and I may rest in peace, I don't think he's with us anymore. I'd like to think on his tombstone said, here lies Reggie Callahan, provided the debuts in Minnesota for the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and Paul Metsa.
That's actually pretty cool. That's really
Reggie was a hell of a guy.
That can be done,
really
yeah.
cool. Paul, I want to jump up a little bit now, and a lot of us know that you're quite a bit of a devotee, a student of Bob Dylan. Now, of course, the correlation here is that after Bob Dylan, who was born in Duluth, moved to Hibbing when he was, 8 years old or something like that?
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Like that. And, I don't know of anybody in our circles that knows more about Bob's life than you do. Rick Shefchak, maybe?
Yeah, well, I've always been intrigued by him. When I was a kid, when I was, 9 or 10 years old, they were calling Bobby Dylan. In fact, there's still people on the range that refer to him as Bobby Dylan. But when I heard, Like a Rolling Stone on the radio in 1966, found out this guy's from Hibbing, right? This guy that's really kind of in the process of changing American culture. I said, I gotta know more about this guy. So I was probably, my sister Kathy Extel, she was a senior in high school. So I got to know, Bob through Kathy's record collection, Dennis Monroe's record collection. And then when I got old enough to hitchhike, when I was about 13 or 14, I'd hitchhike over to to Hibbing, and I'd stand in front of his house and I'd go, the young man that walked out of those doors is, right now as we speak, is in the process of changing American culture. And to me, it's always been a touchstone that even though I grew up on the Iron Range, you can get there from here.
Sure.
I wasn't quite sure where there was. So I always took that as a just a great example of what could be done.
Yeah. It was the sign.
So I've watched him over the years. I'm not, I don't bow down to the guy. I enjoy him as much watching his career. I've been a professional musician now for 40-some years. I know how hard it is. And,
oh, sure.
And now he is, he's a genius. There's no doubt about it. But you see what he's had to put up with. He's had every stone critically thrown at him. He's made his own mistakes. He'd be the first to admit it. But to see this perseverance, to me, Bob Dylan represents just a true Iron Range work ethic. And so that's why I enjoy him. I've seen him probably 30 sometimes in concert. When I moved up to Duluth, I happened to know Bill Pagel, who owns both the Duluth and Hibbing House. So I was able to rent Bob Dylan's childhood home for the first year I was here, which was really a lot of fun. being an Iron Range folk singer myself, so I'd sit on the front porch in the mornings having my coffee, and people would come from, one of my renter's duties was man in the guest book. So people would come and we'd chat. They were all really nice. You'd have teenagers from Wisconsin youth camps to retired couples in their RVs. There was parties from 5 different countries, a variety of languages. But my duty was, besides to pay the rent on time, was to get the names, the date, and where they're from. So, and I'd give them a little tutorial because Dylan went to kindergarten at Nettleton School right up the alley. And
right.
so I'd get, and then if we kind of hit it off and had some of my CDs sitting around, I'd give one of my CDs, which I referred to a friend of mine. It was kind of like the Jehovah's Witnesses in reverse.
Yeah, that's great.
I know I'm such a, I know I don't have many things to say, so just jump in any time.
No. One thing.
I love talking about this stuff.
No. It's quite interesting to Sammy and I, and certainly a lot of other people. Here's the one thing I've really pegged you on. You know, I hate to say peg somebody, but it's to me it's a compliment. Much like I'm not the world's greatest Bob Dylan fan, but just what you said, that what he did and how he came up in the battle he did and persevered. But in his music, in your music, yeah, I get it, people, they call it folk. But there's always a difference in music, whether it's folk, rock, country, whatever. Those who really pull it out of their soul, but you are a troubadour. And when I think of Paul Wellstone, I think of Bob Dylan. Now there's some other ones. And I like a bunch of the, a grouping of the folk artists. But when I think of troubadour, I really do think of you. And I don't know if that gets brought up to you or people call you that or
I
whatever.
appreciate that. People have called me that, and I think I am. You know, and I was just talking to somebody about this the other night. You know, when they got out of the caves, you know, when our ancestors,
Invented
however
songs.
long ago it was, millions of years ago, got out of the cave, they lit the fire, they put stones around the fire, then they started to tell stories. Then somebody started banging on whatever form of a drum, maybe it was a stick on a rock. And then pretty soon they got some gut strings from wherever.
The primal beat.
Yeah, and the primal beat, and they started strumming, then they started singing. So really I think what I do is as a songwriter and a musician and as a poet, it really goes back to the beginning of time. And then troubadours, you know, they call it broadsheets. They were, you know, those guitar players, they were running around in the 14, 15, and 1600s.
Well,
here was the news.
Yeah.
Well,
They'd be singing the news.
I was just going to say, there was a time on the planet, during that time specifically, that troubadours were welcome because not only were they performing music, which people don't get to hear anywhere, hardly any time, and poetry, but it was like, you know, it's like Elvis rode in town on the back of a horse.
Yeah.
That's how they got their news. And, you know, a lot of troubadours were not friends of the court in particular because they would sing about this king or that queen or whatever. And some of it, you know, different day now, but some of them, people didn't really care for that stuff. But,
Well, and America's greatest troubadour, of course, that there'd be no Bob Dylan if there wasn't Woody Guthrie.
Well, Woody Guthrie.
And in fact, you guys you'll like this story. I of course became a huge Woody Guthrie fan and Pete Seeger.
Yeah.
Got a chance to perform at the tribute to Woody Guthrie in '96 at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and got to play, actually jam backstage with Pete Seeger. And somebody just a couple months ago sent me a clipping from the Duluth Labor newspaper, how Woody and Pete played at 12 Superior Street at the Playmore Ballroom in 1941 in Duluth when they were traveling around as the Almanac Singers. And
goodness sake. Didn't know that.
yeah, well now what you do know, Jeff, as a Finn, we're not. Yeah, you and I might be the exceptions. Finns are very low key, and the joke is, did you hear one about the Finlander that loved his wife so much he almost told her, and not really an emotional tribe. Although, like I said, you and I might be the exceptions to that. But I had heard the story, and no less of an authority that Pete Seeger told it to me, because I brought it up, because I knew he had played in Duluth at a lumber camp back then, and I'm assuming it was the same time that they did this rally for whatever the cause was at the Playmore Ballroom in 1941. So they play all night long, and a lot of people don't know, Woody was also a fiddle player, and so he was soloing the fiddle, and Pete was playing his guitar and banjo. They played all night long at this lumber camp, bunch of Finnish lumberjacks, and they get done and they play for several hours, and then they go to sleep, and Woody and Pete are getting ready to go the next day, and the foreman comes up, "Where are you going?" Pete goes, "We played for 3 or 4 hours last night." He goes, "We got absolutely no response." And the foreman goes, "What do you mean? They loved you."
There's a wooden response.
Yeah.
That is absolutely hilarious. I want to jump to another subject, but this is in that mid-'60s times. Now, this boom juice, as we have defined it, redefined it over the months and years, we now call ourselves the Video Connection. And the reason we did that is because we really want to pinpoint our artists and make the focus quite specific, instead of just generalities. You can do that with your uncle or your next door neighbor, whatever. It's not important. It's not interesting. But now you did a video. Now I don't know what yours was. It was called Jack Ruby, and I remember seeing it quite a while ago, but I watched it again today just because I wanted to brush up on it, and because now I've been doing so much video work over the past few years, and mini documentaries, I call them mini docs. I do it on artists, and we're just trying to boost ourselves up, so to speak. And maybe someday I can do a full-fledged video of an artist, whatever. But I watched that video, and I have to say, it really is one of the best I've ever seen. I mean, just start to front, that opening shot, opening sequence, how it was cut. Your director,
John McCauley,
was brilliant. I just want to tell you this. That was a brilliant piece of work.
Thank you very much.
Done well, very done well.
Very well, very well.
I did my first video, I'm thinking in '88, black and white video, directed by a guy that I met when Cats and the Stars were playing around in St. Paul quite a bit in the early and mid '80s. We had quite a few fans from McAllister and St. Thomas, and of course the U of M when we played on the West Bank. But there was a young guy from McAllister named Ali Salim, Alisalim, who's now a big time producer and filmmaker. He did a great film about 15 years ago called Sweetland that was very well done, and he does a lot of television shows now. But he reached out to me and said, I love this song of yours, Slow Justice. I'd be willing to do a video for you. And I'd like to do it in black and white. I said, Ollie, whatever you want, man. So we did the first one there, and we did it on set. It took about a day to do it. And it was a lot of fun, because the thing about video is you're now collaborating, right? And I can go play my songs, write my songs. I mean, I love collaborating with a band. But this was like a different genre, a different type of art. So that was really fun to do that. I let him be in charge. And then it was, I think it was the 50th anniversary of the JFK assassination. And I had written the song Jack Ruby in 1992. And a good friend of mine who had been doing video work with his own company for quite a while, named John McCauley, reached out and said, I think this would be a great video.
Paul, let
for
me
the song.
let me stop. I want to pick up this conversation in a couple of minutes here, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
why. I'll tell you why, Paul. For the audience, for our juicers out there, do we call them juicers? What do we call them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. At any rate, I can't say
It sounds a little
juicers.
weird, but yeah.
Juicers isn't really the best thing to do.
Go with that.
At any rate, we're going to play this for the audience because they need to see this, Paul. It's just
It's really
absolutely
done well,
fitting.
yeah.
It's
Thank you.
wonderfully done. And kudos to you and your people. But let's pick up this conversation in just a couple minutes. Hey, we're going to be right back.
Basement floor of the Dallas City Hall, and that's a scuffle on the basement floor. It seems to concern photographers.
Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Whoever taught you to shoot a pistol like that? Oh, you snuck in the basement and you stood in the back. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Jack Ruby, you were 15 years old. On the south side of Chicago, you looked up to Capone. Stole girls' lunch money, beat boys on the way home. Jack Ruby, you were 15 years old. Jack Ruby, when you were 21, oh, you traded brass knuckles for a caliber gun. In the Sherman Hotel, bootleg whiskey did run. Jack Ruby, when you were 21. Jack Ruby, when you were 35, set up shop in Dallas, you had nothing to hide. A nightclub of hookers in cops side by side. Jack Ruby, when you were 35. Jack Ruby, when you were 49. From the Carousel Club, you kept the judges in line. J. Edgar Hoover said there's no organized crime. Jack Ruby, when you were 49. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Whoever taught you to shoot a pistol like that? Well, you snuck in the basement and you stood in the back. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Did the Kingfish in New Orleans give you the key? The men you should contact and the men you should see. A Confederate cloak of conspiracy with an eye towards November 1963. When the motorcade turned on Houston and Elm and into the crossfire where Camelot fell, with the shots from the Bush's sixth floor window well, in Dealey Plaza more than 3 empty shells. Was Lee Harvey Oswald the only one? One of those in the bushes who started to run? With Secret Service credentials and government guns? Oh, they'd answer no questions about what they had done. Oswald was set up, so he did say, before he appeared in the basement driveway. In on live television, Ruby blew him away. Well, Godspeed the witness with something to say. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Whoever taught you to shoot a pistol like that? Well, you snuck in the basement and you stood in the back. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. a score. From your jail cell, gave names and numbers and more. In 48 hours, she lay dead on the floor. Jack Ruby, come back from the grave. Tell it for real, whose lives you would save, and the powers behind the deals that were made. How a president's murder became your stock in trade. Well, those who are guilty are alive to this day. They got their visas in D.C. and they got it away. Others laid low until election day. It was a day of high treason and a quick getaway. Did the Warren Commission mean what they say, or did the mob or oil money get in the way? Did the shadow of Cuba darken the day? In Dallas County, the land of LBJ. In Dallas County, the land of LBJ. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Whoever taught you to shoot a pistol like that? Well, you snuck in the basement and you stood in the back. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Whoever taught you to shoot a pistol like that? Well, you snuck in the basement and you stood in the back. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat.
Sammy, did you happen to see Jack Ruby, the video?
I did. I tell you what, there's no lie about that. We've already stated it, so the proof's in the pudding. That is incredibly well done.
Thank you.
Paul, yeah, kudos to you.
Well,
on
it's
that.
all John McCauley. And I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago. Great guy, very creative man. But that whole the Jack Ruby story is you gents might find interesting. So I remember, and I'm sure there's juicers out there, as you call them. Now, when I think of juicers, I think of a guy that's, But anyway.
That might be the case, too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We don't drink that much, do we?
Listen,
I never thought we did, but maybe.
I hung out with you guys at the Come On In. I know who you hang out with.
Okay.
So,
Jeez.
I mean, bless them all, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I had seen Jack Ruby shoot Lee Harvey Oswald on television, like millions of others people did. And of course, that was such a dark time in American history. Who'd ever think that somebody could kill our president? And JFK was, no matter if you were really a Democrat or Republican, he was just a very inspiring figure. And so we watched it, and president gets killed, and now Lee Harvey Oswald shot on live television. Really, when you look back at it, it was the first reality TV show, right?
Absolutely was.
And so I was 7 years old at the time. And then, of course, the Warren Commission came around. So you never really, the JFK assassination theories and the Warren Commissions, they were always kind of there. And then Mark Lane came around, rebutting the Warren Commission. So I was always kind of interested in it. I didn't start buying books on it till I was about 14 or 15, but I always thought the name Jack Ruby really had kind of a poetic resonance. His real name was Jack Ruby. He grew up in Chicago. And so over the years, I've been to Dealey Plaza twice. I've got 15 or 20 books on the subject. And one day, I was reading the Minneapolis Star Tribune, and there was an article how Jack Ruby's brother was selling some of Jack Ruby's artifacts to pay off a tax lien, including his Kavanaugh hat. And boom, this is like, you know.
That song must have come together for you right there, right at that point.
That was the key. I mean, that's, I wish all songs were that inspired, it came that quickly, but the chorus did. And I swear to God, it came right in my head. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Whoever taught you to shoot a pistol like that? You snuck in the basement, you stood in the back, Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. I mean, it literally came that quick. So I wanted to write it in kind of like the old folk songs like John Henry or John Hardy, because it was really like an outlaw ballad in a way. And that's how I kind of wanted to present it. So I sat down and I came up with 3 quick chords, put the books all over I was living in South Minneapolis, 3rd floor of this beautiful mansion that Sumner McKnight from the McKnight Foundation built. And was up on the 3rd floor that used to be the ballroom, and I had all my books around. I stayed up all night. And I kept a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there. And I think told a pretty good job of the story. In the morning, I had one line I needed, and I called my friend David Carr, who was writing for City Pages. He ended up writing for the New York Times for 10 years, one of the best journalists in the country, passed away in the newsroom, remained a very good friend of mine till the end. And he gave me the line, and if you ever listen to it again, look for the line, stock and trade. How President Smyrna became your stock and trade. That was David Carr's line. Anyway, so I had the song, and about the same time in the mid-'80s, there was 3 guys that used to hang in Minneapolis. Tom Arnold, comedian.
Yeah, of course.
Paul Metsa getting his career going, and David Carr we used to run around. We lit a few fires in that town. Occasionally we'd shut a bar down and be back at 8 in the morning to open the same bar up. We've all learned the error of our ways. But it was, in mid-'80s. It was the Wild West in Minneapolis. We had a ball for the most part, although we all paid a price to a certain degree. That'll be another Boom Juice show.
Now, just to take that song, Jack Ruby, one little step further. Now, in your video discography, YouTube, you can find it. For those of you who want to look, you did Farm Aid in '92. Now, tell me how you were invited to that. I mean,
I'm a voracious newspaper reader.
Yeah.
I love, in fact, I love reading the Duluth News Tribune, although I wish it was still 7 days a week. And I'm not crazy about the new font. I love the old standard New York Times font, but that's
neither here nor there.
Argument for another day. Anyway, my friend Tom Arnold and met a young comedian and married her by the name of Roseanne Barr.
Sure.
And it turns out that they were emceeing Farm Aid 5 in Dallas, Texas. I'd written another song and released a single called Ferris Wheels on the Farm, about the whole people losing their farms to big ag, big business.
Right, big company, yeah.
Yeah, and the other single I put out around that time was a song called 59 Coal Mines about the mines shutting down. Although it wasn't, I was, talking about the mines on the Iron Range. Coal mines rhyme better than taconite. Yeah. But anyway, So I had this single 45 that I put out, and I thought, geez, I got to get it to, Willie Nelson. So I called Tom, and I said, Tom, could you get this to Willie? He goes, yeah. He got me Willie's address. I sent it to Willie. I'll bet you $100 Willie never even listened to it. Probably rolled a few joints on it. But I was a friend of Tom's, so he said, well, would Paul like to come to Dallas and play Ferris Wheels on the Farm and another song? Well, I had just written Jack Ruby literally a month before. So I asked myself a question that I do when I get in these tough situations. What would Woody Guthrie do? And I said, Metsa, you got to play Jack Ruby in Dallas.
In Dallas, yeah. In Dallas.
10-minute cab ride to Dealey Plaza. So we were on during the day. Tom was able to, it was a broadcast by CMT, but the broadcast didn't start till 7. It went from 7 to 11. And it was really, when we started playing it, I think we were on 4th at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There was already 20,000 people there. By the end of the day, there was 40,000.
I saw the crowd there
But
when you played.
it was Paul Simon, John Mellencamp, Willie Nelson, Neil Young, Leonard Skinner, Joe Walsh, the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders. Dennis Hopper was running
I didn't know
around.
they could sing.
It was incredible. So I went out and I played my song Slow Justice. And then I thought, well, now's the time. If I get out alive, that'd be a good thing too. But you only get chances like that once in a lifetime.
Oh, sure, that's a one-shot deal.
Yeah, so I played Slow Justice and Jack Ruby. They're both, you can track them down. Farm Aid recently released them several years ago on YouTube. And I played Jack Ruby in front of 20,000 unsuspecting Texans.
I have to say that must have been just overwhelming to
It
do.
was, I could feel, I could feel every ounce of energy
Coming
that
back.
I needed
Yeah.
to pull it off. But it was very exciting because you're on this huge stage. When I went out and strummed my guitar before we started to perform, I thought I was sitting in the hands of God.
You could hear the guitar just.
Yeah.
It was unreal. And it was such a professional, all of Willie's people,
Of course.
Texas Stadium. So I knew all I had to do was perform as well as I could. And I had a fellow play with me named Emmanuel Kiriakou, who played guitar with me for a couple years. He ended up out in Hollywood, and he's been a producer. He's produced Celine Dion and others from The Voice and America's Got Talent. But anyway, we played it, we got done, and we went backstage, and Chris Christopherson comes off Willie's bus. God knows what are they doing in Willie's bus. I have no idea.
Probably watching the Dallas
You know what?
cheerleaders.
Nobody knows what they do in Willie's bus.
But they did have a video feed into Willie's bus, and Willie and Chris Christopherson. I couldn't have been more honored because I'm, who doesn't love Chris Christopherson?
Right.
He came up to me and he said, "Man," he goes, "I haven't heard songs like that in years." So it was really cool, and then we got invited, of course, to play the encore at the end of the night. We played "I Saw the Light," the old Hank Williams tune,
yeah.
and a couple other tunes with the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders and everybody, and 40 or 50,000 people. And that certainly was the biggest show I've ever done in terms of people. One of the most meaningful, but truly one of the funnest too.
Yeah.
I have to believe so. Paul, we're going to have to cut this, and we're going to, we're going to pick this up in a different show at a different time, not too long from now. But that is so great of you to bop in and share with us this.
Well,
whole
I'm
thing.
such a wallflower. It takes a while to get me out of my shell.
I also wanted to add to that.
About 30 seconds, I think it was.
So I wanted to add that you've got your own radio show on KDAL.
I do. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, Stars Over the Prairie.
Stars of the Prairie every Saturday morning on KDAL.
And I listened to it. 'Cause
I've listened to it. I have listened to it.
AM 610 AM 103.9 FM, or you can at KDL610.com, you can stream it. So we're doing a fresh one. We're going to have Kevin Odegaard, who played guitar on Tangled Up on Blue, on Dylan's Blood on the Tracks. And then, of course, I saw you last night, and you're welcome to come and hang out every Wednesday night. I play at the Blackwater Lounge.
We're going to come back. Yes.
6 to 8 every Wednesday. And what's cool about it, I talked him into it because we're right, amidst St. Mary's, St. Luke's, and Essentia. If you're a healthcare worker, you get 20% off your entire bill from open to close on Wednesday nights.
That's pretty nice of them.
At the Blackwater
That's pretty
Lounge.
nice of them. Paul, we're going to see you in the future, and in the meantime, we're going to go hang out and pull a couple back and become dyed-in-the-wool boom juicers. Sammy?
Yeah.
You know what we did last time and the time before and the time before?
Damn it, Jim.
Damn it, Jim. We forgot to thank our crew. And so let me go right now. I've been in the studio here all week. Their newest member, Sean Jones, has been helping me. Liz Minette has been helping me. Jim, the whiz kid, Wisniewski's been my number one.
He's the
main man.
The man.
And of course, our compadre, Brian Hull, is with us. And so we want to say shout out. And we're going to put it in this episode, and God forbid we do it again. You know what? This is your fault, Sammy. I'm going to tell you that right now. Just get out of here. Hey, talk to you kids.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Paul. Okay.
Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. Whoever taught you to shoot a pistol like that? Well, you're stuck in a basement and you stood in the back. Jack Ruby in a Kavanaugh hat. 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 Thank you very much. Have a nice day.